Hi, I'm Kristen Hubert. I'm recording in a different room today. This is my son's room because I'm sort of nearing the end of my first ever queen size quilt. So it's a super scrappy stashbuster kind of quilt. The pattern is Rojas by Wisecraft. And I was talking about this project a couple videos ago when I was talking about my scrap management system and how I was cutting fabrics for this and then for other projects. And to be honest, this project is becoming a beast. It's huge. So this is 61 of the blocks and there's 80 in the queen size. So this is a partial row I'm kind of sitting in near. I'll give you an overhead shot. I'll try and put it up there or something. So this is just me laying the blocks out on the floor to see where they all should go. I've spotted a few where I made a few mistakes. The whole point of doing this quilt was an exercise in color on scrappiness. So it's all about light and dark and medium fabrics and where you put them in the pattern. So even though you're using a huge amount of different fabrics, and I actually ended up using a lot of the kind of ugly fabrics that I bought. So I'm still a new quilter. So what I did when I first started quilting, and I still do this now, is buy a lot of remnants and people's scraps and offcuts off of eBay. But I also bought like lucky dip, fat quarters and half meters and things like that. So you don't actually know what you're gonna get. And then some of it's nice and some of it you're like, not really my favorite. So I cut up a lot of that for this. So that's been good, but it's been a lot of work with the cutting. I've been moaning about that in my videos for a while. And now that I'm seeing how big this is gonna be, I chose a queen because I've never done a queen and I just slightly overestimated the amount of scraps I had to use up. And I know I could, I have thought a few times while I've been doing this, I could break it up and make two smaller ones, but I'm a little bit stubborn and I want to make a queen size. So I'm going to finish the blocks. I've got them all prepped, the next 18 or 19 that I have to do. But obviously seeing it all laid out like this, I'm not going to be able to quilt this in my domestic machine. I've got a good machine. I kind of upgraded not long after I became obsessed with quilting. So it's a Janome 4300 QDC. So it does have a larger throat, and I have done some big quilts, but probably the biggest was like a double or a full twin or whatever that size is. The one that's bigger than a lap size, but not quite a full adult queen size bed kind of thing. So I'm thinking about the current plan is quilt as you go, but in sections rather than in blocks, because I think this quilt was already taking me ages. So the thought of quilting and joining each individual block to each other, I think would just send me over the edge. So what I've done, first of all, I considered all the different quilt as you go methods, and some of them just aren't going to work for this. So one would be that one where it would be where you quilt the block with the batting, and sometimes you do that with the backing on as well, and then you can flip it over and do the sashing. I don't want to have sashing in between the blocks, so I don't want to do that method. I also don't want to do the method where you quilt the top and the batting and join those right sides together and then put a false back. Well, it's not a false back, but a back that's not quilted with the top. So if you were going to do that one, I have done that one before, and you would quilt the top more intricately, and then when you put the back on, you just basically stitch in the ditch and attach it. But that wouldn't work for this either, because then I'd still have to get the whole quilt through the machine, albeit not as much, but I still think I would struggle in the middle of the quilt, right? So what I think I'm going to do, because when this is finished, it's going to be 10 rows of 8 blocks. So I think what I'm planning on doing is dividing it into 2-row sections. So I've ordered some batting that is 27 inches wide. I think I got like 10 meters or something like that long. Can't remember. I might have even, I think I calculated, I might have even had to order more than that because of how big this thing is. But it would be just enough to overhang, so a 2-row panel basically. So I would quilt the 2-row panel almost like a big, what do you call those things that people put at the end of like hotel beds that aren't really, it looks like a duvet cover, but it's not, it's just small. So I would quilt the 2-row section. And I think I would do it, I haven't decided whether I'll do that with the backing on or not. So if I do it with the backing on, then essentially when I turn it over and I'm joining it to a second section, it would already be quilted, and all I'm having to do is sew the batting to each other between the rows and then sew the back on. So I'll do a video about whatever it is that I do. But anyway, that's the current plan. But I could also just do that same thing where you sort of add the back and you just stitch in the ditch rather than quilting thoroughly through the back, and then you'd have a slightly different joining method. So I'll do a few test sandwiches and see what joining method I like the best. But that would mean that I could quilt it in 5 sections, and then I'd have to do the joining. And so we'll see how that looks. I have done a quilt as you go, like a lap quilt before, and I did it really badly, but it still didn't end up, the seams didn't end up being as bulky as I thought, which is usually the worry with this kind of stuff. So we'll see how it goes, but other than sending it to a long armor, I can't think of any other way I'm going to do it. So, so it's going to be quilt as you go. And I will make sure and do a more detailed video about how I'm going to do that. Other kind of tips in terms of like doing a quilt this size would be to first of all realize you're doing a quilt this size. I chose a queen and I didn't realize, like I couldn't even lay it out on the floor in my sewing room in the way that I normally do because it wouldn't fit. I thought I'd done big quilts before, but clearly they've not been that big. A lot of them I kind of freestyle the size, so I don't always, I guess, know what bed size it is, because I tend to give people quilts that are meant for use on the sofa and stuff like that, but they're probably bigger than a lap quilt kind of thing. So this is going to be an adventure. I still have some blocks to do, and I have to decide if I'm going to fix, I found a few blocks where I switched the light and the medium by mistake. I have to decide whether I'm going to unpick that and change it, or just let it be a mistake in the quilt. We'll see. And this is just a video of me laying out the blocks while I give you a few of my other thoughts on a project this big. One thing I did, because it was kind of getting to me how huge this project was that after I'd done the cutting and a little bit of the chain piecing of the bits that make up the blocks, I decided not to keep chain piecing everything, and instead I've made one block at a time, as opposed to making all the sections of the blocks and then it not getting to making the actual blocks until the end. And that has made finishing this project or getting near the end much, much easier. So I will keep you updated on my progress, and I've got lots more fun scrap quilting videos planned. So if you like this kind of thing, do make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, leave me a comment, let me know any tips you have for quilting queen size quilts, especially if you've done them quilt as you go. I'd love to hear them before I make huge mistakes. Yeah, and thanks for hanging out with me, and I hope to see you soon.